Christie.
Hi,
It's lovely to see you here this evening. This is Sue Landsberg here again with our Coffee and Connect chat series, season 3, where I'm talking to the most amazing people who I have met and come in contact with, who are amazing holistic therapists. And I want to inform myself more and share that information, as I always do, with you about complementary therapies that can enhance your health and well-being, thus improving and boosting your inner happiness. So this evening I have Denise Christie with me, who I have had the pleasure of meeting a few times in Galway. We're obviously from the best part of the world. And Denise is with me here this evening. She is a lady of many gifts and talents, and they are absolutely too good not to share with you. So, but this evening we will be predominantly chatting to Denise about her reflexology, and we will go into a little more depth into the other therapies that she offers. So Denise, thank you. Thank you for joining me here for a Coffee and Connect on the couch. How are you this evening?
I'm fine, and thank you for having me, Sue. It's really kind of you. It's lovely to be with you.
Oh no, it's always lovely to chat with you. Absolutely. So Denise, you are a health coach. I will just say quickly, you're an acupuncturist, reflexologist. You also specialize in fertility treatment. As I recall, the first time I met you, your tagline is one to be remembered, is I make babies. So that would catch anybody's eye, and it would probably make men run a mile.
It usually does. Usually they think I just need to kind of stroke their arm and it kind of happens. Actually, that was quite tame for me to say I make babies. Sometimes.
Yeah, well, you did go a little further. But I'm just trying to keep it mild, so people don't click off straight away, but it might keep them intrigued to stay and hear more. So that's so funny. But I know you like to create lasting positive change in people's lives. And I know, because I have spoken to you, that you have done this. And your passion and purpose is to help and support people in their health and their well-being. And it's not where you started off, but your journey has taken you this direction. So I know that reflexology spans back over 4,000 years. So enough from me, but would you like to first tell us a bit about you and how you discovered reflexology, how it came into your life?
Yeah, sure. Well, in quite a strange way, really, because like I say, holistic health wasn't always my direction. I worked in law for 18 years in London before I even knew anything about alternative therapies. It wasn't even in my thinking or on my radar. And there was a few, let's say, health and life challenges that came to a crisis point. And a very close friend of mine kept nagging me that I needed to go for aromatherapy.
Okay.
And I couldn't figure how aromatherapy was going to fix the mess that my life was at that time. But in fact, after only 3 or 4 months of aromatherapy, it was a real turnaround for me. And then the universe then kind of had a few more little surprises in store for me. My boss of 14 years took retirement, sudden retirement, and it kind of left me in a position where I was offered redundancy. I was also offered a more senior position where I worked, but I was offered redundancy. And I probably, because of the, kind of the powerful effect that the aromatherapy had, I started looking into other avenues, and I found a course in Canterbury College. It was a 2-year full-time course, which of course my redundancy package enabled for me to stop working and go back to college full-time. And I was a single parent, so I probably wouldn't have been able to do it without that redundancy. So as I say, the universe was really kind to me at that time. And I studied reflexology in the 2nd year. And the hilarious thing is, it is now one of my favorite treatments. In fact, I don't really even do aromatherapy or massage anymore. But I remember going through the first year thinking, oh my God, next year I've got to touch people's feet. I can't bear the thought of touching people's feet. And but we had such an amazing lecturer in reflexology that before we even touched a pair of feet, she taught us the map of the foot and what every part of the foot meant in relation to its corresponding area in the body. So, and that was before we'd even put our hands on a pair of feet. We knew the complete map. And what that meant was, it was genius. And I don't know whether other reflexology teachers teach it this way, but what that meant was, by the time I had my hands on my first pair of feet, I didn't see a foot.
Yes, yes, I was actually thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my introduction. So after spending a year turning my nose up about having to touch feet, the following year it was joyous. It was just lovely. And then it was quite hilarious because I respond really well to reflexology as a treatment. I always get a good result from it. But when we were training, nobody wanted to pair up with me because I would fall asleep. And then of course, I couldn't give them any feedback at the end of the treatment because you're supposed to exchange feedback with your partner. And I'd be waking up from my little slumber going, oh, that was amazing. I slept so well. And they'd be going, yeah, but did you feel this? And did you feel that? No, didn't feel any of that. I was asleep.
Wow, that's interesting you say that, because maybe, and this was one of the questions I was going to ask you later, is whenever I've had reflexology, it can be painful. When I say painful, I mean really sore. And I'm wondering, is that more so because there are areas of my body that needed that attention? It would be particularly the sinus area, and I do suffer chronic sinusitis. So would that be why it would be more uncomfortable for some people?
Yeah, generally the areas that are imbalanced would be more tender.
Yes, tender, that's the word. Very tender.
Yeah. But and I suppose different reflexologists have different techniques as well. Some are firmer than others. So some you maybe, if you tried a different reflexologist, you might not find it as tender or as painful, but you'd still be getting the same results.
Maybe I need to come to you then. Definitely. It's more appealing. Yeah, I was like I was in a sweat. I've gone a few times. I have gone a few times, but maybe I'm more imbalanced now. So maybe it would be more of a pleasant treatment. However, also knowing that it's accessing those areas that you need, you can bear with if it is uncomfortable.
Yes.
So that's interesting to know. So after that training, where did that take you then?
Oh, where did that take me? That, after the 2 years, well, I had just qualified, actually, literally just qualified. And I picked up a newspaper and I saw a house for sale and I decided I had to have it. The only trouble was it was in Galway and I lived in Kent. So
had you been to Galway before?
Probably as a child. We used to come over. My mum is from Oldcastle in County Meath, so we used to come over to Ireland. We spent our summers here on a farm. So I suppose in the back of my mind, Ireland was kind of my spiritual home in a way. I always felt so upset when we were piled into this car and driving away from my uncle and aunt's house. I'd be in tears for until we got on the boat. It was like, oh, we're on the boat. And then I'd be worrying about seasickness.
Yeah.
But I probably, we would have toured a little bit around Ireland. I remember a couple of years running, we hired a caravan and toured around Ireland. So I'd been through Galway, but I had no recollection of it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. But you saw this house and you felt that this was for you.
It was like a magnet, Sue.
Wow.
It was incredible. Yeah, I just kind of looked at the picture and I thought, I have to live there. I just have to have this house.
That's amazing. Fantastic. Well, you can't fight that.
No, no.
So you
Even,
got that house.
yeah, because I flew over to view it, and I booked a flight to come over in the morning and flew back that night. And that was on a Saturday. And when I walked up the step of the house, it's like it's a little cottage in the middle of nowhere. It's, you know, it really is nothing to write home about, except there was this drawer.
Yes.
But when I walked up the steps at the front of the house, I felt like I'd lived here before. It was very mysterious.
Yeah.
So that kind of enforced it for me, really. I'd made the decision before I saw the house, before I physically.
That's very powerful. And I know you're obviously, any of us who do this type of work, you're very in tune. Your energy is very in tune. So when you feel that, you know, you got to trust it.
Yeah, because anytime you go against it, that's when things go awry.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how many years ago was that?
That will be 18 years on the 2nd of November.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. So this is where you now have I know you have your cabins, your treatment rooms, and if somebody wants to see, they can log into your website, which is
healthandharmony.info.
.info. Yeah, I know I've looked on, and it looks lovely, very, very peaceful, and you've done a lot of work there. So what do I want to ask now? How often, I have a few questions to ask you about reflexology. If a person feels that they need something, but they don't want to go down the medical route, and there are so many holistic treatments out there, how are they going to decipher, first of all, if they haven't experienced many of them? Because I know you deal in a few healing modalities as such. So how would you advise them? Would it depend on what their issue or their challenge is as to which, or should they be guided by themselves, what they just feel like trying?
Yeah, I suppose if you're trying out, let's say you're trying out alternative therapies for the first time, you've never had one before. I suppose, speaking from my own experience, what I tend to do is, let's say somebody phones me up and say, I don't really know what I want. I just know that I need something for X, Y, Z, you know, maybe sleep or anxiety or whatever.
Yeah.
I always say, let's do the consultation first. Okay. Let's see what comes up in the consultation. And then from that, I take my guidance from what I believe will be the most powerful, or sometimes the most gentle approach for them.
Because depending on what that person needs.
Yeah, not everybody wants or needs dynamic. You know, some people need take them by the hand and lead them, you know, kind of very gently towards, you know, along their own healing journey. Because I never think of any of my treatments as, oh, this is a cure for X, Y, Z.
Yes.
I see it as a partnership, that they're using a treatment in partnership with whatever changes they then can make. Because it's like, otherwise it's like going to the doctor for a pill. Because if you are handing over responsibility to somebody else to cure your ailment and not taking any responsibility for yourself, which is generally what you do the medical route, I can't see how you can get any better reaction with the holistic route unless you start to make changes, unless you are prepared to take responsibility. I can't put a sticky plaster over something. And then again, I can't make people do something either. So our health journey is that it's personal to us. It's about taking responsibility, and it's about me guiding my clients into, this is where we are now, this is where you want to be, and then mapping out the journey in between. And that map of the journey is half what I do and half what they do.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, people have to have a proactive participation in their own healing.
Yeah.
There's, yeah, a lot of the time in this fast-paced world, people reach out and just want to take a pill or a quick fix without doing anything. And it does take a little more work, personal development and healing, and that participation on your part. But the results are long-lasting, natural, bringing yourself back into balance, that everything works exactly the way it's supposed to. So it's a very different outcome rather than, as you said, putting a plaster over a wound. Well, that's lovely that you do the consultation and that you get the whole picture, because sometimes we're just not feeling right, but we don't know what's wrong or what we need. So that's really good. And it's really nice that you do a few different modalities to support people. Can I ask you a few questions that I have, and then you can fire ahead? I'm dying to know more. But what I wanted to know is, for people who aren't familiar with reflexology, how does it actually work?
Okay, I'll try and give you the
a bit like, a basic overview of for somebody who's not really sure about how this potentially massaging someone's feet. I know it's not that, but I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Of how can this work? Can you explain it in layman's terms to us?
So I suppose the easiest way to explain it is every single part of the body, every part of the skeletal system, muscle system, all of the organs in the body are all represented on the feet by way of what's called reflexes. So it is a type of massage routine. So you're correct in saying that it is a type of massage routine, but during that routine you are stimulating those reflexes, and then it's a bit like if you've got a problem with the computer, you get the computer guy in, he presses the keys on the keyboard, he finds out what the problem is, he presses a few more keys on the keyboard to tell the mainframe, this is your problem, you need to fix it, and then it comes back into the body of the computer and fixes whatever that issue is. So I suppose that's the simplest way of me explaining it. So in that way, you're asking the body, you're saying, okay, I've come across this, there's an imbalance here, I'm going to work on it a little bit extra because this is where I found the imbalance. The message goes to the brain, okay, there's an imbalance, let's say it's in the stomach, so there's an imbalance in the stomach, so, kind of acid reflux, or sometimes even it can soothe the effects of celiac disease, or anything really, any of those types of conditions. So the message goes to the brain goes, okay, I've got the message, there's an issue here, there's an imbalance here, I'll fix that. So the reflexology in itself it's almost like a conduit for the body to do that work.
Great. And tell me, can you feel where somebody needs, like, the different areas in the body? What do you as the therapist feel if somebody has, say, for example, for me, for sinus, what and where are you going to feel that? And if anybody has any questions, maybe he's asking, feel free to send them to Denise. She loves questions. But so, for example, if I have sinus congestion and pain, and I haven't told you, so you're going to travel around the map of my foot, what are you going to feel?
Okay, so where there's an imbalance, you feel like a little, for all the world, like grains of sand, or clumped together grains of sand, so like a resin underneath the skin. And that can be tiny little specks, or it can be larger amounts depending on how long you've had the problem and the severity of the problem, and also depending on whether it's a chronic or acute problem. That can feel different. So you're using your thumb, you're using the side of your thumb, tip of your thumb, and your fingers to do maybe little caterpillar movements. So and obviously on your fingers and your thumb, you've got a lot of nerve endings there, they're very sensitive. So you're going to pick up, it's called picking it up. So you're going to pick up imbalances. So if I was, kind of working on somebody that had sinus problems, the front of the toe, because the toe is the head.
Yes.
So the front of the toe is going to be the face, and then the tops of the other toes and the fronts of the other toes, so your sinuses as well. So all of those, you're more than likely to feel these little crystallized deposits underneath the skin.
Fantastic. That's interesting to know. And depending, like you said, if an issue has been chronic or acute, would that, and is everybody different in how many sessions they would need to feel a challenge or an issue resolving? I guess that's very, very individual.
Yeah, well, some conditions can be chronic and acute, like sinusitis. There can be an underlying imbalance there where you can feel some element of, congestion or runny nose or pain or whatever that can be chronic. And then every now and again that may flare up into kind of an infection type situation. So you can maybe be dealing with both. But generally, what I say to my clients is we go for 4 sessions once a week. That's to create balance.
Yes.
So no more than once a week and no less than once a week. And the reason for that is no more than, because if you go too far, then you're back into imbalance again. You lose momentum. And if it's too close together, you're not allowing the body to do its own job of healing.
Yeah, because
and
we
then
tend to be the patient in modern medicine. We want the quick, whereas the body naturally heals, has that capability itself. Yeah, and so if somebody who tends to have issues sporadically, would your advice be, and again, I know everybody's individual, to have maintenance possibly once a month, a treatment to maintain balance in all areas of their body?
Yeah, generally. What I say is time and finances allowing.
Yes.
If they can, if time and finances allow that they can come once a month, that would be the perfect scenario. If that's 6 weeks or if that's 2 months, that has to work for them too.
Sure.
You can't put somebody under pressure to say.
No, then you're creating another issue.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
But it's an investment in yourself. No, I'm definitely coming. Are you open for business now during COVID?
Yeah, I reopened, I think it was the 8th of August we were allowed to open. That we were kind of put off, and then eventually it was the 8th of August, so yeah.
Because this is certainly a time that people could really do with this. Just creating more balance and supporting themselves naturally with something that is sustainable and natural and good for their well-being. I'd love to hear some of your success stories with reflexology. Are you willing to? I'm sure you would be delighted to share with us.
Yeah, well, there's a few of those. There's a good few of those. I mean, obviously, there's quite a few. There's quite a few baby stories around the reflexology.
Yes.
And
well, I'm not after a baby, thanks. But for those who might be, those days are gone, thank goodness. Yeah, I'm sure there are many who, with many stresses in life and with the toxicity of our world, are struggling in that area. So you've had success areas with reflexology with that. Fantastic.
With fertility, it's been quite a few. But you see, I suppose where I bring in the other treatments as well, sometimes it's hard to pinpoint exactly which has worked when it comes to the fertility. But I suppose my most memorable, and this wasn't fertility actually, but very dramatic in what happened. I had a phone call out of the blue one day from a mum who was very upset about her 15-year-old son, who had been in hospital I think it was 7 times over 9 months, or the other way around. I can't remember. I know those two figures are in my head. So it was either
Okay.
9 times within 7 months. But
Yeah.
every time he was in hospital, it was through A&E, and he was on the point of collapse. And they just could not figure out what was wrong with him. And he was the same age as my daughter, and I think they kind of knew each other because they were all into music. So you know, so I kind of peripherally knew him from, you know, kind of the music scene, as it were. And but he was very, very open and very into Reiki. And his mum said to me, "Oh, you know, would you see him for Reiki?" And I said, "I will, but you have to be here because he's only 15."
Mhm.
And so he came along, and in the end, because his what was happening to him was very dramatic, I actually said, you know, do you think he would actually take some acupuncture, because it can be more dynamic, and let's see what happens in that. Now, she'd given me the diagnosis that he'd received medically, and it was a mental emotional diagnosis, let's say.
Mhm. Mhm.
But sometimes when you're doing acupuncture, the needles respond in a certain way, and also the tongue and pulse diagnosis, you know, you're looking for that. And I was looking for those to tie up with the diagnosis he'd been given,
Okay. Yeah.
and they didn't. So when he was coming for the next treatment, I said, do you mind if we do reflexology this time? I'd like to see what's going on with certain areas of the body. Now, I had it in my mind what I was looking for,
Mhm.
but you can't tell a parent that, and we're not allowed to diagnose. So I kind of half knew what I was looking for, and what I was looking for did come up in the reflexology. There was a particular part of the endocrine system, and there was alarm bells going off for me, because worst case scenario with this particular, you know, what was coming up could have been, you know, could have been very bad. So I had a chat with the parents, and I asked them to go back to the doctor and asked for a very specific blood test.
Okay.
I asked them not to Google or look it up. Of course they did, but I did ask them
I
not.
know. Yeah. Don't touch that chocolate.
I know. But anyway, they did take him to the doctors the next day, and they did ask for this blood test. And I spoke to the mum. Well, I actually, he ended up in hospital the next day, straight from the doctor's appointment. And I went to visit him that evening, by which time he'd had his diagnosis. And yeah, so his mum was telling me what had happened in the GP practice, and what had happened was I coached her really in what to say, because, you know, it's not my place or a patient's place really to tell a doctor anything. It's their job to, you know, kind of look at what they're presented with and work that out. But I was just kind of giving her a little bit of guidance about what to ask for. And the doctor was actually a little bit scathing about reflexology. But as it turned out, the particular blood test that I asked her to get done, he had Addison's disease.
Okay.
And it was one of the two things that was on my radar for what could possibly have been going on with him. When he finally ended up with a very good endocrinologist that he was under until he was 18, I think, he was actually told by the endocrinologist that each one of these episodes where he ended up in hospital could have been fatal for him.
Wow.
So any one of the following episodes could have been fatal for him. So, you know, he has a brother who tells his friends that his brother is only alive because I like touching feet.
Isn't it just as well you do?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, you know, it may well have been that at some stage that may have been picked up, but he was kind of running out of time as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because each one of his episodes was worse than the previous. was weakening his whole system. So, and you know, if that wasn't being picked up, and
Yes, yeah.
the reason why it wasn't being picked up is because, and this is why I never make assumptions with anybody that I meet, because you can't. And this is why I go through, you know, a kind of an 8-page consultation with them, because I want to unravel and kind of unpick and join up the dots as what's going on. But an assumption had been made that what was happening for this lad was mental emotional, when in fact it wasn't at all.
Yeah.
So every time he landed in A&E, nobody was looking to see what was wrong with him, because the letter that he was arriving with,
yes,
stated that it was a mental emotional issue. You know, so that would be my, I suppose, my most dramatic, you know, kind of.
That's. I bet he has a picture of you framed on the wall. All around.
I do know his brother went to medical school afterwards and is studying to be an endocrinologist.
Oh my!
Yeah.
That's
so
amazing.
you know, that is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Look at that. That's fantastic. And it's also, what triggered me there was also when if you get a diagnosis, not always to just trust and believe in the one. Explore other avenues, explore other therapies, because one doctor or one holistic therapist, even with one modality, may not give you, if you're not having success and you're not getting the answers that are serving you and supporting and helping you, then just get that second and third opinion, because your life could depend on it, like this boy.
Yeah, and I suppose, you know, what you have to take into account is that, you know, doctors are very, very busy people.
Absolutely. Yeah, and they've so many tools that are right there and then. They're absolutely doing their best. So it's nobody's fault, but just always just broaden your perspective, I think is what I'm saying, and don't.
Yeah. I think it's a switch in mindset as well. You know, I think when you switch your mindset from health is wellness rather than illness, you know, and that's, you know, and when you switch that mindset, I believe that that's when you've really made a decision to take responsibility for your own health, and that's about creating healthy habits. Because if you let's say if you've followed a largely unhealthy diet, you haven't exercised, you're drinking fizzy drinks, you know, you're eating rubbish food, if you do that for 15 or 20 years and you get to a certain state of play, you're at a crossroads then, or, you know, you're at a fork in the road. This fork in the road is, you know, let's have a medication for this symptom and this symptom and this symptom and this symptom. This fork in the road is, am I actually going to take responsibility? Because this point up to here is the poor food choices and the poor lifestyle choices. So this fork in the road is, do you want medicine to deal with your symptoms, or do you actually want to take responsibility for the choices that you make that determine whether you've got aches and pains, whether you're digesting your food, whether you've got energy, you know, whether you're diabetic. So all of these are type 2 diabetes, obviously, but you know, all of these are completely within your control.
And not blaming, not playing the victim and blaming society, your work, this, that, or other people. It comes back to you. Nobody else can take that responsibility for your well-being and your like, obviously there are illnesses that aren't a person's doing, but we're talking about the ones that are preventable. It's about being mindful that you actually, the book lies with you and you can control a lot. And taking that responsibility and doing
and that's quite empowering. So, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And little steps to reclaim that power in little steps. So take small moves, and then that creates an effect of affecting the rest of your life, right?
And sometimes it's the smallest changes that make the biggest difference.
Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah. And it's something I find as well, even though we practice all these things, it's very easy to fall off the wagon, and we all do, and we're all human.
Yeah.
But when you have empowered yourself with the techniques, say, that I teach and practice, and what you do, and we there's quite a crossover there. Is the thing is, when you do fall, you know how to get back up. So you are much more resilient, and you bounce back so much quicker because you know what to do.
Totally.
So you will still go there, and there will still be the stress and the anxiety, but your response is different, and how you cope with it is different, and it doesn't knock you the way it may have done before. Do you find?
Oh, absolutely.
When you're looking after yourself in that way. Yeah. Can I ask you something, and then I want you to chat loads more? I think this is my last question that I want to ask is, how is it? So when we use essential oils, and I know Anne-Marie Murray is here listening, and Anne-Marie is also from Galway, and I'll be chatting to her about essential oils in a few weeks. So I'm very excited about that. But speaking of feet and how that corresponds, when I use essential oils, say on my feet, and I know the feet absorb into the body so much quicker, and then say you wear your socks or whatever and go to bed, how is it that you so quickly taste in your mouth when something goes on your feet? Do you know?
I don't know the answer to
is that just me?
I really don't know the answer to that question.
Anne-Marie will maybe be able to answer that question for me.
Is it Anne-Marie the oil whisperer that you're having?
Yes.
Hi, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, Anne-Marie's here, and I'll just see if anybody has. I also have a friend from South Africa watching, Washila, and Washila is also a reflexologist. So she's loving hearing you chat, Denise, and I don't know if she has any. Anne-Marie is just saying how fantastic you are. We all know that. If anybody else has questions on reflexology or other therapies, maybe you can tell us a little more about what else you do, Denise, and how we can contact you. And one other thing, I'll have to, don't say Google, but I'll ask Anne-Marie, and also why, now everybody will go put something on their feet tonight to see if they taste it. But anyway, maybe that's just my experience.
Can I just ask you something?
Yes.
Is your feet the only place that you put the
no, well, I do I put essential oils on my wrists, behind my ears,
and would you get a sensation of that taste when you only when you put them on your feet? And where on your feet are you putting them?
Oh, I'm very slapdash. I just put it all over. I'm not very
well, I mean, you know, the thing with essential oils, they're minute molecules, so they're straight into the bloodstream.
Yes.
And I guess at some stage that you know, kind of when that is coursing around the body, it has to hit the endocrine system, and it has to hit the olfactory system. So maybe that's how you are sensing that smell of it, you know. But I can't imagine why it's only the feet and not where you put it when you're putting it anywhere else on the body.
I'm a mystery. What can I say? There's always one, Denise, with a question that we don't know. Oh, and listen, something else I want to ask you, and then before I let you go on, in case I forget, is in these times, we're in very uncertain, unpredictable, so it's very stressful, anxious-ridden times for the best of us. Is there any pressure points or anything in reflexology that we can do to help ourselves in this time if we can't get to you?
Okay, absolutely, always. Like even starting off with like a gentle massage of the entire foot, or if you can get somebody else to do it for you, even better. So, you know, kind of maybe soak the feet, some lovely Epsom salts, pop some essential oils in, some nice relaxing essential oils, dry the feet thoroughly. And then I tend to use a balm when I'm doing reflexology. I just find the slip is much easier to deal with, and it's not too oily. I don't like working with talc. I love all things organic, so anything that you're popping on your skin, try and make sure that it's organic. So the head is the big toe. So a lot of the stress is carried in the head. So even, you know, kind of massaging the big toe for 3 or 4 minutes over the top of it, and the neck is kind of the base of the big toe. So we hold a lot of strain here. So around the base of the big toe and the whole of the big toe. So that's going to give you an immediate relief, because you think about how many, you know, kind of the muscles that come up into the head, where you're holding all that tension, creates a tightness, forms into a headache. You know, before you know it, you're suffering a headache because you're so tense, all those muscles are tense. So if you work on the big toe and the base of the big toe, that's a good starting point.
How is that more effective, or just maybe easier to do than actually just massaging your own head and neck?
It all depends on how bendy your knees are, I suppose.
It might be quicker just to do the toe as well.
Yeah.
Because the head and neck is a bigger surface area too.
Yeah. But there's some really powerful acupressure points that you can use as well. When you put your thumb here at the back of the head, we hold an awful lot of tension in there. So, and there's a lovely little dip there. So you just or get a tennis ball or golf ball and just kind of massage in there, but that will release a lot of tension as well from stress. And the other, well, I suppose the gut is the second brain. So another thing that you can work on the feet is work on the gut. When you can soothe the gut, you can help to soothe what's going on up here, because any stress, any strain, it doesn't just land in the muscles, it's going to land somewhere else in the body. 9 times out of 10, it's going to land in the gut. Either it's going to create, if you're, you know, kind of tense about something, it can create constipation, or if you're nervous about something, diarrhea. So there generally is always some kind of gut connection. And, you know, kind of going back to what you were mentioning before about stress, particularly what we're stressed about at the moment, which is, you know, is a virus on the rise again? Are we going to go into lockdown again? You know, these are all questions circulating around everyone's head at the moment. You know, control the controllable. We cannot control whether or not we're going to lockdown again. We cannot control whether or not a virus has come or gone or still with us. These are all factors completely outside of our control. So look at what you can control. So if you can control what you're putting in your mouth, whether you're taking time out for meditation, or, you know, kind of whether we're working with someone like yourself for meditation, or whether you get an app on the phone, whichever that is, these are all things completely within your control. So when you look at what you can control, the stuff that's overwhelmingly outside of your control starts to become less scary.
Absolutely. Yeah, oh, I agree, because I practice now literally, well, every hour, even more, just re-grounding myself, because what we focus on is what will grow. So be very mindful of what you're growing, and affirmations and things, and what you do read and what you do surround yourself by, and the people you surround yourself by has a massive impact, even if you don't realize it. So by practicing all these healthier habits of being, totally transforms how you perceive all these uncontrollables, right? And how they affect you. So it's really important to create those little habits. So for the gut, where do we massage for the gut?
Okay, so just to keep it simple, let's say this is the foot. So this would be the ball of the foot, right?
Okay.
And this let's say this is the heel of the foot.
Yeah.
If you divide the body of the foot up into 3 sections, you've got the top part here, the middle part, and the lower part, which is the heel. So this midsection here, now there's a lot of other organs in here as well, but if you were to do clockwise circles around that area, that's covering most of the intestines. You're going to be covering some other organs as well, apart from the endocrine system, the kidneys and the liver, but to soothe the guts, if you just wanted to do something for self-help yourself, just circular movements in a clockwise direction, always in a clockwise direction, because that's the direction that our gut moves in. It always moves in the clockwise direction.
If you do one foot, do you need to do the other, or is it just both feet have that access? So
I suppose a lot of the organs are bilateral, but some of them are, you know, kind of, they're just specific to one foot. But I just think it is nice, if you're going to massage one foot, to massage the other as well.
Yeah, because the other one will feel left out. Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can't be mean.
That's what I always think. Back home, she used to massage. We used to massage each other's feet when she lived here. It was lovely. Yeah. And then I would sleep like a baby. I would sleep like a baby whenever
I'm going to do that tonight. The middle of the foot. That's a very tender area too.
It can be, and it will be for most people at the moment.
Yes, just go gentle. And maybe if we practice doing that, like if we practice doing that, again, I know we're all individual, but if we practice doing that, the big toe and the middle of the foot, every day for a week, do you reckon we would feel benefits?
Without a doubt, you will. Yeah.
And so we're to use the side of our thumb, right?
Yeah, you can use the side of your thumb. Well, for the big toe, if you're massaging it yourself, it really doesn't matter. You can just massage it whatever was right for you. Yeah.
So we really got to befriend these things on the end of our legs, right?
Yeah. I remember when I was studying reflexology, the hardest job in my life, Sue, ever. I did some waitressing when I was in college, because I'd stopped working in London, but I didn't want to spend all my redundancy on college and all the rest of it. So I was doing a bit of waitressing for about 10 hours a week. And there was a chef, and lovely chap. And he was kind of saying, what are you studying at college? And I told him, and he said, do you know what? He said, and he was fascinated. Now, he knew nothing about reflexology, but he said when he was a child, whenever he got upset or whenever he got a headache, he would sit and rub his big toe.
Oh, wow.
And the headache would go, or it would kind of change his mood. He didn't know anything about reflexology. I was explaining to him, what reflexology was, and he was going, oh my God, I used to rub my big toe when I was a child. And I was going, okay. And then he told me the story, about having headaches and that sort of thing.
That's the thing. Innately, we actually know what to do.
Yeah.
Right. You often see babies when they're so bendy and they suck on their big toe.
Yes. Yeah.
I wonder, maybe that's soothing, teething, all in the head. It could be like and also as you say, calming the emotions and the mind. So maybe they're sucking as a soothing effect. And that's interesting. I just came up with that now. You never know what you're going to come up with on these chats.
Even sucking the thumb though, Sue, because even sucking the thumb.
Yeah.
Because it's hand reflexology as well. So the reflex points are they're more dynamic on the feet.
Okay.
There's reflex points on the hands as well. So when babies are sucking their thumb.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah.
I could talk to you forever. All I need now is for you to come over. I can lie on the couch. I'm happy to do that.
That's hilarious. I went to this is one of my weird stories. My daughter and I went to we stayed with friends at a house in Châtel in France, and it involved flying from here to Stansted, from Stansted to Geneva, hiring a car, driving for 4 hours from Switzerland to France in torrential rain. So we arrived at this house, which is this beautiful log cabin in the middle of nowhere, halfway up a mountain in France.
Heaven.
And there was 11 of us in total, so there was 9 already in the house. They'd all arrived before we got there. So we'd done this mammoth journey, and when we arrived, they kind of went, oh yay, you're here. They'd set up the dining table, they put a mattress on it, and they had drawers as to what order they were going to get their treatment in. And I was going, I got up at such and such a time, I drove to Dublin, I flew to Stansted. I kind of relate the whole journey, but it was hilarious. They had all decided, Denise is coming, who's going to Who's going second?
Oh, so funny. I
That was
hope
the
you
deal,
got
though.
your turn after that. You would well
Well,
deserve
it
it.
was kind of the deal because we all split up our chores, and I don't cook or I can't cook. So basically, they decided I was kind of relieved of cookery duties
Well,
as long as
yeah,
I did reflexology and massage.
that's pretty good. That's pretty
Yeah, it
good.
was a good deal, really.
Fab. Is there, Denise, tell us a bit more just about the other therapies. I'm just going to look here. Is there any? I would also, oh, well, Sheila said, I'd also look at where I'm applying the oil on my feet. Okay, well, maybe I need to pay more attention to that. My daughter
Yeah.
calls me slapdash. I do everything like whatever. I don't know where it goes. It probably goes everywhere, but I will pay more attention to that. So, well, Sheila, thank you. I will do that. I don't know if anybody has any other questions. So, what else can you share with us, Denise, or would you like to, about what you do, how people can contact you, and any other therapies that maybe we can even come on again and talk more in depth? I know you do so much for women over the age of 50, and I've 2 years to go. So I'll book you in 2 years. But I know you are a wonderful support, not just to couples who want to conceive. I know you're very busy making babies with that. And maybe that's something we need to talk about in another Coffee and Connect, as I need a refill soon. And also, what about other therapies? And then we can maybe just touch on them so people know what you do, and we can always chat more in depth about one of those in another chat.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's the reflexology. I do acupuncture, Reiki. I train in Reiki as well. I have a kind of a sometimes a bee in my bonnet about Reiki training. I call it flaky Reiki. You know, when I hear somebody's trained in Reiki on the internet or in 2 hours,
Yeah.
I find that hugely irritating because I feel it's a disservice really to such an amazing treatment.
Mm.
And health coaching and kind of just to give you a synopsis, I suppose, of the fertility work. Again, we're innately fertile. We were born to have children. We have a womb, we have ovaries, men are producing sperm. So there is this belief that as soon as we start trying to get pregnant, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when it doesn't, I suppose most couples are directed down the medical route rather than trying to look at what exactly is going on with them, what's going, systemically, metabolically, and hormonally. So, and that doesn't have to be tests. That can be, let's look at what sort of life are you leading, and what sort of food are you ingesting, how much stress are you under, what are you doing about that? So when I'm working with a fertility couple, it's never right, okay, let's do acupuncture, that's going to solve the problem, let's do reflex, that's going to solve the problem. It's a really holistic approach, because the first thing particularly that the women have to look at is the message that they're sending their body. And and you do affirmations, so you know exactly what I'm talking about here. When when it comes to what message are you sending, because if you've been struggling to get pregnant, or suffering from miscarriages, that message that you're sending to the one part of your body, your womb, that you are expecting to nourish and nurture and hold your baby, if that message is fear, if that message is anger, if that message is hatred, if that message is I don't want to think about you, so complete detachment, how is your womb going to mind your baby for you?
Absolutely, because as we know, if we feel anxiety, fear, or stress, that has a direct mapping in the body. You can feel it. So it makes sense that what you are saying and that message you maybe even subconsciously be sending to your body can have and does have a huge impact on your internal organs. Yeah, for sure. And that's something I think we don't always think about. Yeah.
Yeah, and certainly that wouldn't come from, you know, kind of from a medical perspective. You know, it's the
For
function,
sure.
yeah, that they would look at.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the foundational part for the woman. That's the foundational part of the work that I do with her, and that would be a question I would ask every time I see her is, you know, how do you feel about your womb? What are you telling her this week? You know, so that we work on that and then work on, you know, other periods. Like, is the period okay? How long is the cycle? When is she ovulating? You know, and that kind of stuff, because that's almost easier to fix.
Okay.
You know, the corrections of the bleed and the cycle are almost easier to fix than the message. And then with the guy, it's really simple, because like,
sorry, excuse me laughing. Sorry.
The hardest part with the guy is actually getting them on board. Once they are on board, and the message that I give to the guy is, okay, so you're producing sperm every single day that reaches maturity and can fertilize an egg in about 90 days time. So do you want that sperm to be bog standard, run of the mill? Do you want it to have, you know, get out of bed in the morning? Or if it does get out of bed in the morning, that it might not complete the journey. Or if it does complete the journey, it's got 2 heads and 2 tails and can't fertilize an egg. Or do you want sperm that leaps out of bed, sticks on a red cape and says, today's the day I'm going to fertilize that egg? And then they're going, well, actually, I'd quite like the red cape version, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because what guy doesn't? So as soon as you harness their ego, they're on board. They're on board with making whatever changes. And just like one guy I worked with, he's just classic in terms of making those changes. When I first met him, he was at the time a fireman and running a business. So he had 2 jobs. He was getting about 5 hours sleep a night. And he was fueling with coffee. So he was having 11 coffees every single day. And when he first told me this, I said, there's not enough waking hours in a day to have 11 coffees. Of course, there were for him, because he was awake 19 hours every day. So there were enough waking hours for him. So, you know, when I explained what that was doing to his sperm, he gave them up, just gave them up. And that was kind of against my recommendation, because I said, no, I'd like you to kind of cut back. Let's work out a plan, how many you can cut back a week until we get to, we're having only 2 coffees a day. No, just going to give them up, just going to give them up. So he did. So 3 months later, they were pregnant. But the hilarious thing was, he was sitting on the sofa with a bowl of yogurt and fruit and, you know, all lovely, healthy stuff, nuts and seeds. And she came up behind him with the pregnancy test and waved it in front of his face. And he just went, well, I don't need that anymore then, do I? And
oh, brilliant.
So that was...
They're more straightforward. When you were saying, I feel bad laughing, but when you say they're simple, they're more straightforward.
Yes, yeah.
I don't want any men to get the wrong idea. They are more complicated. I laugh because I love the way you put things. You always make me happy and see the lighter side. So yeah, because often when a couple can't fall pregnant, well, certainly I'm like way past that, but it's often like, well, there's something wrong with the female, or there must be, you know, yeah. And yeah, who doesn't want to wear a superhero cape? Exactly. Even if it's internal.
And you know, so it's even more foundational than that, because I hold a very firm belief that it's not about whether there's something wrong with the eggs or whether there's something wrong with the sperm. It's that from that moment that a couple makes a conscious decision that they're going to start a family, they become parents. And if that's the case, when your child is born, you want to make sure they're warm, that they're well cared for, that they get enough sleep, that they get good quality food. So if you're going to do that when the baby comes out of the womb, why on earth wouldn't you do that to prepare for the conception of that child?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've had a lot of success stories with people you've worked with this.
Yeah, I have 57 babies.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
And they're to couples who had many of them gone another route already, or had they?
Yeah, all sorts of routes. Some of them, one of them had spent €70,000 on IVF.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
That's a huge stress in itself.
Yeah,
I know.
exactly. Yeah. Others had some IVF, others were considering IVF, others knew that that was never going to be the route for them. One couple I worked with, they had all sorts of stuff against them. He was working in Dublin, she was working the other side of the country. They were only meeting at weekends because, it was economics, really. They had planned one round of IVF. And when I met them, they said, this is all we can afford, it's one round of IVF. But what they wanted to do was make sure that that round had the best chance possible.
Yeah.
So they wanted to do the foundational stuff to make sure that when they had the IVF, that the quality was there. IVF is fabulous at producing lots of eggs. It's fabulous at taking the sperm and rinsing it and making sure that it's, they've only got good quality sperm to fertilize those eggs. But what IVF doesn't do is improve the quality of those eggs. There's nothing in medicine that can do that. The woman has to take responsibility for that in terms of the changes that she's prepared to make. So I worked with them for nearly 4 months, and then I knew when they were going for IVF. So generally what I would do with a couple who is going for IVF, especially if there's a gap between when we've worked together and they're going, I have it in my head when they were going for their their treatment, and I wait the 2 weeks. So I waited for 2 weeks after I thought the date I had in my head of when she was going, and I phoned her up and she answered the phone. She said, I'm going to have to phone you back, I'm just out of the doctor's. And I said, all right, okay. So she phoned me back about 10 minutes later and she said, oh, really good news, we're pregnant. And I went, oh my God, that's brilliant. And I can't remember, I said something to her, something along the lines of, oh yeah, I figured, I had the time right. I was waiting for the 2 week wait. And she said, no, naturally. So this was a couple who'd been given a 0% chance of getting pregnant naturally because of sperm quality, because of egg quality, and because of egg reserve. 0 chance of getting pregnant naturally. So that was always in their head, that they could not get pregnant naturally.
Yeah.
And I love to disrupt that thinking. I love to, take that thinking and go, well, is that actually true? And then you look at the foundational stuff. Are you getting a bleed? How long is your cycle? What's the color of your blood? Are you ovulating? And if all of those things are in play, how can there be a 0% chance? So I love to kind of almost hear that, because I go, oh, really? Do you think that's true?
That's incredible. And I certainly know, it's my daughter's 16 and my son 13, so it's years ago, but it's something when you're conceiving, you don't even consider, I don't know if people do now, consider all of these things. And it's something that we need you out there to inform young couples, which could save them a lot of trauma, a lot of stress, a lot of heartache, a lot of finances.
I would actually love, Sue, if even kind of going back to kind of conscious conception, is don't wait until there's a problem. Become parents the moment you make a decision that you're going to start a family, and from that moment do everything in your power to create a happy, healthy pregnancy and a happy, healthy baby. Because there is yards and yards of evidence that the healthier that both parents are at the point of conception, the healthier that child is going to be going forward.
Yeah, it's huge. Wow.
So it's not even about waiting until you've had miscarriages or waiting until, you know, you've been trying to get pregnant for 2 years. It literally is about, how do we create the healthiest combination of the parents, because that's what you're trying to do as parents.
Yeah.
You are,
Yeah.
you know, that you're trying to recreate, you know,
But you
kind of.
don't realize you have a choice of how or quality. It certainly wasn't on my radar or on my mind.
No, and wasn't on my mind either. I mean, my
Yeah.
daughter's 24, but after
Yeah.
she was born, and it's the reason why I do what I do, so is that after Alice was born, well, during the birth, there was a lot of trauma. I don't speak much about the trauma, to be honest, because I work with fertility couples, and it seems unfair to fast forward them to, you know, something going wrong, because the chances of something going wrong in birth is actually very, very rare. And I was extremely unlucky. But what that meant was, my husband and I could look at each other and get pregnant, but my body couldn't hold those pregnancies. So that was my, I suppose, that was my crisis that brought me into holistic medicine.
Yeah.
And then the point at which I realized I needed to know more about how to help other women is when I met somebody like me who'd had 13 miscarriages.
Yeah.
So, you know, to meet somebody like that, and we had 8 miscarriages, and I always think, Jesus, like 8, how would you even tell people you had 8 miscarriages? You know, it just seems like a phenomenal number.
Yeah.
And then you meet somebody who's had almost double that, you think,
you could see how they could give up, and they could actually hold a lot of resentment and anger. And, you know, thankfully there are people like you. Is this all on your website as well? I presume it is.
Yeah,
yeah. Can you help people remotely with this? I guess you can.
Yeah, I do.
There are people globally who may tune in or listen to the podcast, and if you can help them remotely, that would be amazing, because you went through all this and you have studied and you are practicing to give back and help others. And the more people that can reach, the better, you know.
Well, what I've put together, actually, what I'm finalizing this weekend is I've put together an online course, let's say. So it's all pre-recorded material. There's workbook with it and that sort of thing. So all of my knowledge is encapsulated in there. Now, obviously, that's not, you know, so when I'm working one-to-one with a couple, I can focus on what I see as their specific blocks.
Yeah, sure.
But this is basically everything that you need to know to make sure that you're doing everything in your power to create a healthy baby. So that will be that should be available after next week. I've been kind of working for the last couple of months on that.
Yeah.
I also work one-to-one online and in person with my couples. So if they can't get to me, I have a baby in New York, I have a baby in France, and I have 2 babies in the UK. So definitely I'm international.
Yes.
So it's quite possible to, you know, obviously I can't do acupuncture or reflexology remotely, but what I tend to do is I coach one-to-one. They tell me where they live, I do research for them, and I find them a therapist in their area with what I consider to be the right qualifications and the right experience for that couple.
Oh, you sound like it sounds wonderful. It is wonderful, the work you're doing.
Yeah,
it really is, and so rewarding, Denise.
Yeah,
so rewarding.
Well, there's the heartache too. Yeah, there is heartache. You know, if a couple has a miscarriage, or you know, and or if it's not working for them for a while. But you know, there was one couple I worked with for 2.5 years before it happened. So you know, don't give up.
Yeah, they're all individual. What you're doing is you're giving them the best chance. Clearly, we can't control, and you know, fate has its way of, you know, it brings us different scenarios, and you can't control all that, but you're giving people the best opportunity that they can, that they may not even be aware of that they need, rather than just going one before going to IVF. Just give it a try, or or combine the both. That's brilliant, Denise. Oh well, I will absolutely do my best to share your beautiful work, because I think it's incredible what you do. And I know I've met you, and I know you're such a beautiful and compassionate and kind person who really wants to do what she can to help and support people, and you are. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I'm coming over to the couch. My toes are ready.
Wonderful.
So healthandharmony.info.
Yeah, so www.healthandharmony.info. I always get this wrong. I always get really confused. And then the email is healthandharmony@live, live.ie. Facebook is Health and Harmony Loughrea.
Yes, Loughrea is Loughrea.
Yeah. And Twitter is Fertility Galway.
Okay.
And Instagram, I think that's Health and Harmony Loughrea as well. I get very confused with all the.
Well, that's because you're so busy. You're all over the place, and you have your and that's the nice thing about radio. People can access you globally as well. You're like, it's amazing because I know you have your time slot now on your wellness program on Loughrea Community Radio on a Sunday morning at 11
o'clock. Yeah.
There you go. Because I have tuned in, and it's so lovely on a Sunday morning. So anybody who wants to connect with Denise and absorb some of her lovely, healthy vibes, that's a definite go-to. And if you play your cards right, she may play a request for you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
She won't massage your feet, but she might play a request over the radio.
And I love that. It's just been so much fun. And even because I first came up with the concept of that it was a year ago, 2 weeks ago, actually, that we had the first meeting for that. And then there was all these meetings about meetings, to be honest. And I can't do meetings about meetings. I want action.
Yes, I know. I'm like that too. Yeah.
So we got to the point we had a building sorted and we were about to move in. And then, of course, we went into lockdown. So that went all by the wayside. And then one of the guys who'd come on board fairly late in the process, I don't think he came on board until about a month before we went into lockdown. But he's just genius. He's a technical genius, and of course he was in a band, so he's really suffered in terms of lack of work since since lockdown and that sort of thing. But he's just ploughed so much energy and enthusiasm into the radio project. So he kind of called me up one day and he said, Denise, have you heard about this lockdown live radio? And I said, no. And he said, oh, have a look at it. And he sent me the link. And I just phoned him back and I said, well, anything they can do, Dave, we can do. So that's what we did. And we ended up basically, like, this is my office, but it's also my recording studio. So what we did was we kind of all gave him a budget and we said, right, okay, this is how much we've got to spend on studio equipment. So all of us have a mini studio in our homes. And that's where we record our shows. That's where we, just fling it out there. But it's really good fun. And even sometimes the best bit is choosing the music, because sometimes you can be in a bit of a naughty mood.
Yeah.
And, when you're choosing your music, and if you want to be a bit rebellious, and I can't think of the examples now, but sometimes I'll come up with songs of what's going on in my head, really, rather than
but that's what's nice, because that makes it personal, and we get to connect with you as a person that way as well. There's what we want, what I love is like real connection with people. And I know because I've listened quite a few times, and it's like you reminisce on this time and then this song, and that triggers things for us as the listener too. So You're definitely onto something really nice there.
Yeah,
Definitely don't change.
Definitely is good fun. But we had fantastic news there 2 weeks ago. There's a developer in Loughrea who's putting in some new shops, and he has offered us for free a studio pod within this development. So
gosh,
fingers crossed, we'll be in our very own studio before Christmas.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Yeah. So then you'll have to come into me soon and I'll interview you.
I would love that. I would love that. I really would. Well, that's a
Can't
date.
wait. Yeah.
That's a date.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait to have the studio because you know it's one of the difficult things about running the show here for me is a 6-month-old puppy, a 6-month badly behaved puppy.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And you're halfway through a show and she's the other side of the door scratching to get in or barking or dropping stuff all over the room and you think, oh my God, no.
You're not alone. Listen, as I said to you before, I've got 2 of them here and it is completely hit and miss. Can't put them outside, can't put them upstairs because one will cry and bark until, so they're here. The odd time I duck out of a picture because I have to pick one up. But that's life, that's real, and that's cool. Yeah. So I understand you there. But that'll be nice in the studio. And we will definitely celebrate that with you and let us know and keep us updated.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd love to have you in for an interview, so that would be fabulous.
Yeah, well, you can't get out of it now.
What
date? I'll put it in my diary. WhatsApp me after. I want to put the date in. Oh, wonderful. Well, we'll definitely connect then some more. And I think we'll definitely have another chat about more of your healing modalities and catch up with you again. I would absolutely love that, Denise.
Oh, thanks, Sue.
Thanks so much. And if anybody wants to connect with you, they've got so many avenues there that they can. And I think they'd be mad not to. And I will definitely give feedback after I've been for my reflexology in the next few weeks.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Denise. I will chat to you soon.